We are getting closer and closer to the start of the NFL draft. The Broncos don't pick until the third round, which means it's important that they hit on those picks. Today, we're breaking down a couple of defensive players to watch for. Welcome into the studio. I am Phil Milani alongside Sidney Jones and Eric Dalala. The Broncos only 5 picks in this draft, which means they got to hit. They got to find some guys who can contribute as rookies. Sidney, give us a couple of names to watch for. I know edge position could be an area of focus.
Yeah, for sure, Phil. And it's like George Payton always says, you can never have enough pass rushers. A couple guys that I've seen out there in mock drafts. One is Ohio State's Zach Harrison and then Notre Dame's Isaiah Foskey. Starting with Zach Harrison, I know ESPN's Jordan Reed has the Broncos taking him in one of his mock drafts. And, you know, he had 8 tackles for loss last season, 3.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles during his senior year last season. And he's a big dude. So excited about him, the potential of him. And then Notre Dame's Isaiah Foskey, he had 11 sacks during his final 2 seasons at Notre Dame. And, you know, he's a really durable guy. He has not missed a game in his final 3 seasons there. And, you know, he is also projected to go a little bit earlier, maybe in the second round, but, you know, maybe he falls back a bit too.
Well, the edge position, obviously very deep in this year's draft. I know Pro Football Focus has 13 edge rushers ranked in their top 50. Erica, you think the Broncos might go there as well?
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I mean, obviously the Broncos traded away Bradley Chubb last year, so that leaves somewhat of a hole. Randy Gregory, we know how good he can be. He's coming back from injury. But then you have Baron Browning, 3rd-round pick a couple of years ago. Nick Bonito, a 2nd-round pick from last year. So we'll see if the Broncos, you know, for the 2nd consecutive year, make an edge rusher their top pick. Like Sidney mentioned, you can never have enough guys there. She mentioned Zach Harrison. One of the things that's interesting about him is he could move down and potentially play D-end as well, according to some of these NFL draft analysts. And so that could be an interesting thing if you're looking for somebody to put opposite of Zach Allen on the defensive line at the other defensive end spot. Could be a guy to give you some of that interior pressure. Tuli Tuipulotu from USC.
Say that one more time.
I nailed it. I'm not going back and doing it again. He's a guy athletic, fast, coming off the edge, big guy. He could be a prospect that's potentially available. I just think there's so many options here, though, right? It's more about what do you want out of this position? And like you mentioned, Phil, just a deep class at edge rusher. So the Broncos, maybe you don't have to go there with their first pick. One guy, Phil, that really interests me, Drew Sanders out of Arkansas. He can play both inside linebacker and outside linebacker. Transferred from Alabama last year and had an incredible year for Steve Atwater's Razorbacks. So he's one of the guys I really like in this draft. He's projected to go in the 2nd round. If he falls down there, maybe he's a guy you strongly consider too.
Another area of need the Broncos could be targeting, according to some of these draft experts, cornerback, Sidney.
Yeah, Phil, I don't think that's a huge area of need for the Broncos, but they can definitely add depth there. A couple names that I've seen going around in mock drafts is Tyrique Stevenson from the University of Miami down in Florida. You know, he's an outside corner, but can also slide inside to the slot too. And, you know, he only allowed 17 catches last year, so maybe a guy you can keep your eye out on. And then I know one of Pro Football Focus's mock drafts had the Broncos picking a corner out of Utah, Clark Phillips III. You know, he's a smaller corner, but, you know, he's a playmaker. He had 6 picks last season in 4 pass breakups. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys in this draft that the Broncos could add for depth for sure.
Clark Phillips, an interesting guy just because the Broncos have K'Waun Williams there at that nickel spot. But Clark Phillips, if he's on the board, his tape really shows a lot of production. First-team All-American, Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year last year, as Utah had one heck of a season. I know Tim Patrick, Garrett Bowles, they're probably loving that. They'd like that pick there. But, Erica, a couple other names maybe to watch out for?
Yeah, Phillips is a guy I like, unanimous All-American, as you mentioned. Not sure if he's going to be there, so that might not be a decision the Broncos even have to make. If you're talking about Stevenson, a physical player, and I think you have to consider the room, right? You've got Pat Surtain, you've got Damari Mathis, Trayvon Smith, K'Waun Williams, so a good group there. I think you're just looking for somebody maybe to help out on the outside. So Garrett Williams is one guy that you could potentially watch. Syracuse, he is coming off an injury, an ACL. Again, our friend Mike Kliss reported that the Broncos are going to visit with him. He's a 3-time honorable mention All-ACC player. There's some talk, is he a corner? Is he going to play safety at the next level? Maybe some versatility there. So he could be an option. And then Phil, Cam Mitchell, he's a Northwestern Wildcat. Just had to toss him in
guy, huh?
as an option.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, interesting what sort of strategy the Broncos take, like a guy like Garrett Williams coming off of an ACL, maybe he'll slide down to the third round for the Broncos there. But, you know, a guy who has some potential. You have to see what kind of strategy the Broncos take, especially on the defensive side of the ball, a unit that was so strong a year ago. See if they can bolster, certainly edge and cornerback, maybe a position that they'll be focusing on. That's going to do it for us. For Eric Galal and Sydney Jones, I'm Phil Millar.